Wonderful. Thank you, Caroline, for spending some time with me this afternoon. And for anyone watching, we are going to have a conversation about Caroline's experience on my 5-month group coaching program, the Inside Out Leader, which has recently finished, and Caroline was one of the participants.
Thanks, Claire.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for taking the time. And we're just going to have Caroline, I've just got some questions I'd love to explore with you, just to find out more really about what led you to sign up for the program, what the experience was like, because I think it can be just really helpful for other people who may be considering this to hear it from somebody that's been there and done it, and might help their decision process.
Sure.
Wonderful. So do you want to maybe just share just a little bit about kind of where you are in your career, where you were in your career before you started the program, and kind of what led you to sign up for it in the first place?
Sure. So my career's been in HR. I've worn lots of different HR hats. And I truly believe that HR and people is the right space for me. So I've never been in any doubt about that. But as the years have gone on, I feel like I've really grown my experience. But at the same time, I'm really conscious. I don't feel I've really truly fulfilled what I see as my potential. Like I feel I'm getting there, but there's just some things that feel that they were holding me back. And I finished a permanent job towards the end of last year. And with everything that's been going on with COVID, I'd seen, Claire, your post about the Inside Out development plan, which was the kind of 90-minute session. And I thought, new year, I really want to get my head in the zone for thinking about what lies ahead. And so joining that session was really great at reminding me, I guess, of some of the things that we don't get the time to do in our everyday lives. So, you know, I'm a busy mum first and foremost. I love my job. I put my all into it. I'm a wife. I'm a sister. I lead a charity. I've got all these different roles, and I don't give time, or I don't invest time in myself. And so having done the 90-minute session, it really gave me a flavor as to the kinds of themes that we would be exploring. And one of the things that really stuck in my mind, and I don't think this will ever leave me actually, from the 90-minute session, was you talked about this idea of being in your zone of genius. How do you get into your zone? And we all know what that feels like. We know what it feels like when we're in our zone of genius. And you also talked about when you're in that zone, everybody wins, not just you, but all the people around you. And what I then thought about was actually, do you know what, in terms of the longer term coaching program, if I can find a way to be more in that zone of genius in my career going forward, that's a place that I want to be. So that was a big factor. And the other element was that someone had asked me a couple of months before joining the program, what was my purpose? What was my values? And I fumbled a whole lot of stuff, poured out. I just couldn't articulate that. And I felt that in terms of the stage of my career and making choices as to what I would do next, that was something holding me back. The fact I couldn't clearly articulate for myself, let alone anyone else, what my purpose was and where I really wanted to head. So those were the key things that led me to the program.
Thank you for sharing, Caroline. Can you say a little more about this feeling you had of, you know, you were in work that you believed in, there was never any question that it was HR, people related stuff, but this sense of feeling held back, can you maybe articulate that a bit more?
Yeah, so probably the easiest way to describe it is I felt I had old ghosts floating around with me that would come with me from job to job, that, you know, and we talked about this briefly, that I was always looking for the quick fixes for that, you know, so I would read a book that was recommended on a particular topic, and I go, that's great, that's really helpful learning, but applying it in practice or having the discipline to put it into practice or even knowing how to put it into practice was really hard. So, you know, I felt that there were, you know, it didn't matter which job I was going into, I still felt that there were some things within me. So we've talked about my my Be Perfect driver and that Olympic coach inside that keeps driving and driving. That's, you know, it's helped me be successful, but at the same time, it's also the thing that I feel has held me back, and that drive to be perfect and doing things like 120 out of 100 rather than 80 out of 100.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. I'm just asking this because for anyone watching this programme, yeah, we go deep here. We go underneath, you know, why is it we're feeling held back? So as well as exploring things like purpose, we dig into some of these inner voices that can be very active, that can have us feel like we're a bit stuck. And yeah, thanks for sharing some of that. And my next question is, so yes, you came to the workshop, it piqued your curiosity, it felt like the right time. Was there any other concerns or questions you had? Like almost, what did you think about the programme before it started?
So I didn't have any strong expectations. And part of that was because I trusted from the 90-minute session that I joined that this was going to be worth my time. I also knew that because I'd invested so little time in myself, that whatever it was going to be was going to be time well spent. And but one of the things that did intrigue me was doing this coaching in a group context. So I hadn't done that before. I had been part of many team development and team leadership sessions, but I hadn't been part of something that was coaching, but in a group context. And I was really intrigued about that. And again, I went in with an open mind, but I think you know, in the end, and we can talk about this, I think I gained more from doing it with others than just myself. And I guess ultimately, you know, I wanted to explore it. And I think the tone of the way that you wrote the overview of the programme was very straightforward, honest. It didn't have all the kind of corporate bumf or, you know, fancy words. It was just really straightforward. And, you know, as I say, Claire, I trusted it. I trusted that it was going to be time well spent.
Wonderful. I'm glad you did. I know it's straightforward and it's not short. It was written, yeah, it was written. I guess there's lots of things I wanted to say about why I think this work is important. And yes, this group dynamic that was new for you. Can you say, because I think this is something that could either really pull people into this and intrigue them as it did you, or it could be something that almost makes people think, not sure I want to go deeper and explore in this way with a group of people who I've never met before. Because this was, for anyone watching this, a small group who didn't know each other from different organisations, who had never met as at the first session. So yeah, what was your experience of that, of the group?
Yeah, so very quickly, and I think in the first session, Claire, you got us to talk about almost like what would our ways of being or kind of our rules that we would have within our group. Because I think that whole bit around creating a safe space where people feel that they can be themselves and trust that it's completely confidential and that we can be ourselves is a really important starting point because it sets the scene. But then I think it takes, you know, not long, but a session or two where you start to see people and you hear people open up. And that means you are prompted to open up. And then someone else opens up and it becomes like a snowball. And before you know it, actually, the trust is there. And it came quite quick for our group.
Yeah.
And it meant that not only were we able to be open and honest, but we were able to learn from other people's journeys. And even if it wasn't exactly what we were experiencing, it prompted us to think about things we maybe had not considered. And also, I certainly know from my perspective, it helped me see things through someone else's lens.
Yeah.
You also have a real skill and a real talent at being able to manage the grip, and I mean manage in the most positive sense around, well, it was probably less managing and more kind of helping to maneuver us in the right direction. Everything felt like I had a very clear purpose for us as a group, you know, so we were never floundering or kind of wondering where we were going to go next. So we had a very nice balance between being able to connect with each other, but also at the same time know that that conversation was going in the right direction. So it was a very nice balance.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna miss the four of you. Let me see here. Yeah, is there anything else about the process itself? We'll kind of get to the outcomes that you're experiencing as a result of it. But so you've talked a bit about the group there, but anything else in particular that felt powerful for you as in terms of the process, and any parts you'd highlight?
Yeah, I think that the last two sessions that we had, I really started to understand the building blocks we had built along the way that weren't completely apparent to me at the beginning. And it was only when we were almost reflecting back and pulling on some of the learnings and insights from earlier in the program that you were able to kind of pull everything together into one whole. So, you know, as we were going through the different sessions, they each have their own different vibe and they each have their own different outcomes and purpose. What you don't realize until you get towards the end is how all of that comes together. And that was the bit, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I'd always in the past been looking for the quick fix. And this isn't the quick fix. This is going through it mindfully, still at a pace, but it's not something you rush, you know. And then you find yourself at that kind of finish line in the final session, and actually you don't want it to end because it is a process and it's a journey, and it evolves, and your own insights grow as you go through the sessions. So I think that in itself was a very powerful process, because you didn't, and I would imagine it's an intentional thing, Claire, you didn't tell us at the beginning exactly how this would work and shape up to the end. It was something we needed to uncover and explore ourselves, that I think meant the learnings were something that we felt we'd uncovered. We felt that we owned the learning.
Yeah, no, and this is so cool hearing you reflect this back in your words, Caroline. Yeah, because what I think this kind of work can feel overwhelming. It's almost, there are so many books to read. There is no shortage of resources. There really isn't, you know, all the knowledge and know-how. There's so many wonderful experts, and the challenges, I believe, relating it to our own experience and finding language that resonates for us as individuals. And yeah, it sounds like what we were able to do as a group is kind of have an experience where it resonated for each of you in your own way. So yeah, my intention was to provide this structure, but for you to each make it your own. I know that I was kind of blown away at the end of the final session, where you each shared your kind of stories back and how unique they were, whilst there was still this like lovely common thread.
Yeah, and I think we were all amazed at each other's journeys. You know, that was the other thing that was really, you know, we were literally in that kind of jaw-dropping moment when you looked at what others had, and they were really very, very different, but with those common threads, as you say. But how fascinating to kind of hear people play back their experience of it. Like it was a brilliant afternoon. We had a really good afternoon together. We definitely did.
We did. Yeah, I think the only thing missing was some bubbly, but yeah, maybe we'll get to do that. And Caroline, can you share a little bit about, you know, now you've come to the end of the program, you know, what is different for you? Because there were things you wanted at the start of this, but can you just share a little about where you are now?
Sure. So it's hard to put it into words, but I will do my best. I think that there's been many gifts with the program. What I do know is that I can now articulate the things that have been holding me back. I can also really articulate my starting point for my purpose and my values as if I've known them all my days. But probably more importantly than that, it's great to know your purpose and your values, but how do you use them to then navigate through your working life and also life beyond work? And I think that's probably been one of the biggest gifts, is not just the knowing what they are, but about how you can then use them to your advantage in life. So you're making these really, I think how you describe as kind of conscious choices. And you mentioned earlier about some of the inner voices. So I have that kind of Olympic coach, I have the people pleaser, I have the judge that kind of criticizes me and really kind of has embedded in the past that kind of fear of failure. And what I have been able to do, I mean, the program's called the, you know, Inside Out Leader. And to begin with, I didn't really understand exactly what that really meant. But I think what I now really understand with that is around how my inner leader will really bring to the fore my purpose and my values to help me make these better kind of conscious choices around the smallest things in life to the biggest things in life. So from, for example, I can even think of meetings that I've had with clients over the last kind of 2 to 3 weeks, where my response or my approach has been different to what I would have taken before, because I'm consciously bringing in the inner leaders and my values and my purpose into even those day-to-day conversations.
And Karen, how does that feel? Like as you, in those moments when you're really, because what I'm hearing is, yeah, it's one thing to have it on paper. Almost that's the easy bit. The bit that's most important is living it. And yeah, can you bring to life what that feels like for you as you're in those moments? Maybe that meeting example or something similar.
Yeah, so I think, well, for me, I always encourage others to start small and grow. And so I've really tried to apply that myself. So starting with, you know, some of the stuff where you're just, you know, testing stuff out, is actually really liberating. It's really liberating, and it feels empowering. And what happens is then you come away from that and you go, that went well, or maybe even that didn't go so well, what I would do, how I might tweak next time. But I guess the judgment has gone because I'm actually in a space where I feel comfortable in my own skin. And I also know for me, it's going to be practice, 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 practice. It would also be very easy for me to take my eye off the ball, even for a few weeks, and lapse back into old habits and old routines. But the space I'm in at the moment is being very conscious and checking in once a day, every day, and it might just be for 5 minutes around where am I at? What conversations am I having? What conversations am I to have? And also starting to use it in some bigger decisions around what I do going forward, which is where it really comes into its own, and feels like I feel it's put me in a very different space around how I make decisions going forward. It's a very different thought process to what I'm used to.
What was it before? So when you looked at a big, say, career decision or something like that?
Yeah, so I would look at it very tactically. So I would look at, and I would very often write down lots of lists of pros and cons, all the pros, all the cons, and then I'd look at it and I think, that's fine, but that's not helping me. I've just got this big long list now, but it's not helped me to make any decision. Whereas what I'm getting into now is more depth around, it's not so much a list of pros and cons, it's a list of different perspectives to consider and listen to, and then think about, well, how does that map to my purpose? So and I'm talking about the, you know, the bigger decisions. I mean, obviously for the smaller day-to-day stuff, I'm not doing deep and meaningfuls for all of that, but I mean, certainly moving away from just lists of stuff to having more perspectives, I guess, of those inner leaders around my table, that are just allowing me to consider things more in line with my values and my purpose.
And as you sit here today and kind of think, well, this is the way you're making decisions now, how do you feel about that? You know, knowing that these big decisions are here and this is how you approach them now?
I mean, honestly, I wish I had done this 10, 15 years ago. Not because I think the decisions would necessarily have been different decisions, but I think life would have been easier and possibly more joyful in the process. So I think how I feel about it is that I feel less pressured. Because always before there was a pressure of a decision, what should I do? List of pros and cons. You know, what if I make the wrong choice? So there's a big bit here about confidence in the decision-making process in itself, and trusting that actually, do you know what, if it doesn't go right, it doesn't go right because, well, it's not because of skipping or failing to consider you know, all the stuff that's really connected to my values and my purpose. You know, so I can go into these decisions feeling like I don't feel a tightness. I feel like how to describe it? It's easier. It's less mentally tiring. It's also somehow just more obvious, and actually it's something that I can apply across every aspect of life, not just job related stuff. So yeah, my family have been experiencing my practice as well.
Well, my next question was going to be, just as you talked there about almost, it sounds just like work, that part of your life is taking up less energy, you know.
Yeah.
Realizing maybe, yeah, if I'd done this sooner, I could have saved a lot of energy, some angst. What is the impact of how things are starting to feel now? What's the impact on other parts of your life, Caroline?
I think I have more space to focus on other parts of my life. And, you know, I always felt I was, you know, as many people do in the world of work, on that treadmill where you just cannot take a breath. space that I'm in now means that I can stop and think about these other parts of life. And I guess I've also realized how interconnected they all are. And I can also see even, you know, some of the benefit of this, even in terms of like parenting, you know, and from a family perspective, I think I'm just more chilled about the choices to come. You know, I think others have been like, oh, do you not know what you're doing yet? Like, what's happening next? And I'm just quite relaxed about it. And I think that is surprising people because I'm not up to high-do. And yeah, I don't know whether it's the summer weather or the fact that, you know, I've had over a year at home now in my own bed and not traveling, but whatever the combination is, I know that the work I've done here is the biggest factor. It's the biggest factor in feeling, as I mentioned, I feel way more comfortable in my own skin.
I'm really enjoying listening to you. It's wonderful just to have the chance to speak one-to-one and hear you reflect this back. So I'm delighted this is how it's feeling for you, Caroline. It's wonderful. Let me just, I was lost in what you were saying there. I was going to have a little look at what else I just wanted to check in with you on. Yeah, was there anything that didn't work so well for you in the programme? Like, is there anything you changed? Because this is the first time, as you know, I offered this out as a public open workshop. Usually my group coaching programs are a part of an organisation's offering. People kind of know each other and it's in that context. But this was an experiment actually to see, could I take this, the principles and I guess all the learning that I've taken from working with many people one-to-one and create this group experience. So I'm going to be offering this again, but I want to learn from this and know what to keep, know what to tweak. So anything at all would be really useful from you.
I can't think of anything I would change. One of the sessions that I found harder, and I think each of us found different sessions harder, but the one I found harder to get into was the one where we were focusing around our environment. And that day, I think I was feeling really tired and I was really trying to focus myself on the session. And it was only afterwards when you gave us our homework, which actually I really like the idea of homework because it really reinforces the learning and we do a lot more kind of deeper thinking. But actually, I was like, oh my God, this is really interesting. I've never tried this before. This is really different. And, you know, I'm gonna try this out more. So I would say, I guess, to anybody listening to this, there might be, like, if you were doing the sessions, there might be somewhere at the beginning you're a bit like, I don't feel quite in the zone today. But my own experience was to trust in the process, and the process always came up trumps. You know, there was always some richness there that I could take away and apply. And then the second thing was I hadn't ever used Telegram before. And here you'd encourage us all to use Telegram. I think we're getting there towards the end, weren't we? But I'm
going to butt in here and
I'm sure. Yeah.
I wanted to create some sort of online space where the group could stay in contact, but stay off of Facebook, WhatsApp, have something that probably people weren't using for anything else. So we could keep this kind of separate, but it's just like a walkie. You leave a voice message, you can leave a little message. It's very similar to WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, go on. Go on.
And so there's a couple of things. One is because it was Telegram and it wasn't stuff coming into your usual WhatsApp messenger, it felt like it was nice and contained.
Great, yeah.
It wasn't getting muddled up in the noise of everything else, like you know, school football sessions or wine club or anything like that. So that was good because it gave it its own space. And you know what I hadn't ever done before was use the voice function of that to kind of have conversations, although conversations were split over time, backwards and forwards. And I hadn't ever done that before, but I'm doing that all the time now. Even my friends, I'm leaving them all these messages and then they're leaving the messages. So that was more of a surprise. I think that it took me definitely a while to get into that mode of using Telegram that way. And as I say, I think if the course had ended up being longer, I think we would have probably even dialed it up even more of a notch. But
no, I definitely noticed a warming into it, a warming up. And yeah, for anyone watching this, you have the group Telegram space where everyone's connected, and then also everyone has a private channel into me. So yeah, there's like unlimited one-to-one coaching access to me via that as well, which it can feel different. You know, you leave a message and then you hear back and then we leave another one. But yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. That's useful, because that's one thing I've been thinking, should I keep that the same? It sounds like it worked for you. And perhaps it's a case of like geeing people up a bit more at the start to experiment and play with it. Wonderful. Is there anything else, any other feedback you have, any tweaks, anything you think could make this an even more powerful experience for people?
I'm stumped with that question. I can't think of anything else clear. I mean, the overriding feeling that I'm left with is that what impact this could have on so many people, so many people I know, as well, that I think could hugely benefit from this in a very positive way. You know, so that's why, you know, I said, let me help spread the word, because this should be for the many. You know, there's a great opportunity for people to just unlock stuff that they're stuck with that's holding them back. And as you know, it's been a great experience for me, and I just want other people to benefit from the same kind of experience.
Well, Caroline, you taking the time today to share in such detail with us your experience is I think is really helpful for people, so they can hear it. You know, it's all very well me sitting here trying to describe what happens, but you know, people have been able to get a little snapshot of what it's been like for one person who chose to come on this journey. And you know, I think also, I guess I want to acknowledge, you know, I do also think another reason you have taken so much from this is because it was the right time for you. You were at that moment, that tipping point of, right, I need to do something about how I'm feeling now. You know, I'm going to make this commitment to myself. And you were, you know, I could feel you all in, process from the start. Because it's of course it's a two-way thing. You know, you've got a lot from it because you've put a lot into it. But I'm just delighted that the whole process has felt as you've described. Yeah, it's wonderful. Is there anything else you'd say to anybody watching this if they're thinking about signing up or investigating it and looking at the page? Anything at all?
If you're in a job that's really intense and it's hard to grab a free minute, then people might be thinking, how do I create the space for this? And I know that for each of us that were participating in the program at the beginning, we were kind of that, will I actually be able to really commit to this in practice? And, you know, we went through, as you say, 5 months, and not a single one of us missed any sessions. And, you know, I think that speaks for itself. You know, it is, you know, if you really want to get the value for you out of it, you're right, you do have to invest. And, you know, there is some homework, but it's not like it doesn't feel, it's called homework, but it doesn't feel like homework, although that's its label. And, you know, the days where, you know, you've got that session are something you look forward to, as opposed to something where you're like, oh my God, how am I going to create the space in my day or take myself away from the interruptions? And I think that given that all 4 of us that were going through it made every single session, regardless of the pressure of the jobs and everything else that was going on in life, as I say, it speaks volumes.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. But I'm glad it felt like that. And yeah, like 5 months, when you say, you know, when you weather was very different 5 months.
Can't believe it. Yeah.
And yeah, so we meet 90 minutes every 2 weeks, for 90 minutes every 2 weeks. And then there's of course, as you can hear from everything Caroline's saying, it's then the implementation of the learning in your day-to-day. That's the big thing. It's, yeah, I don't believe change really happens until we put it into practice in real life situations and see what happens. And I've designed this program to feel spacious. The content could have been crammed into, you know, we could have done weekly sessions over a shorter period of time, half the time. But I really think the richest learning happens outside of the sessions, and then we come back together, and that's what makes the learning outside the sessions possible, the support from the group. So yeah, thank you for talking about the time bit, because this is, I think, what could worry a lot of people. Have I got time for this? Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Caroline. I'm gonna stop recording now. Okay.